Good morning. How's everybody doing? John here. So look, we got to talk about it. I've been sitting on this topic. We had brought this up beginning of the week actually, and we got to talk about World War III. Spoiler alert. I don't want anybody to be. I don't want y'all getting spoiled over here. Spoiler alert. We're going to be talking about World War III. I told you at the beginning of the week. Give me a few days to think about it. Are we officially there? Or is this something that Donald Trump, once he becomes president, can he get us out of World War III, basically? And I said, let me know what you think in the comments. But I've had some time to think about this, and I don't think that we're getting out of World War III. I've looked at both sides of it. I think we're in it already, and I'm going to make a case for that this morning. First of all, we got to understand why. Why is World War III taking place? And it has to do with the world's reserve currency. So the US dollar has been the world's reserve currency throughout the last century, more or less. And if you go throughout history, what you will find is the reserve currency every century or so switches. And what we are seeing right now, the SWIFT system that is based on the US dollar, as we talked about earlier in the week, is actually dying. The US dollar itself is dying, therefore the SWIFT system is dying. The BRICS system is the new girl in town. I mean, hey, look, like you don't know, right? The BRICS system is the shiny new thing, and the BRICS system allows countries to do their own thing without asking for permission from the United States, without having to worry about sanctions, these sorts of things. This is why we had talked about, this is why Trump has announced he wants to put a 100% tariff on BRICS countries, because think what you will about Donald Trump, okay? Don't really care either way. But he's smart when it comes to economics. He understands the system, how the system works, and he realizes we're on life support. He realizes BRICS is the new thing. But dig a little deeper, and what you're going to find is you're going to find two groups of ultra elites. Everybody points to BlackRock, and I think they're definitely players in this. They're in one group for sure. All right, the military complex, the military industrial complex throughout the West, the United States and our allies. But there are actually two groups of elites. And they're arguing over, are we going to continue with the SWIFT system? Or are we going to, is the BRICS system going to be in control for the next 100 or so years? And anytime this happens, you'll notice on the back end of a reserve currency swapping out, or even in the middle of a swapping out, you see world war. And I believe that's why we are seeing it when we are seeing it. And unfortunately, again, us peasants, meaning us people that they consider, somebody had said the other day, us useless eaters. Pretty accurate, right? We're just the people that they sell Mountain Dew and frozen burritos to, son. We don't really matter. They want our taxes, they want to thieve off of us, and they want to give us marching orders, in a time of world war. And I thought about this, again, I've been thinking about it all week, but I really, really thought about it. And it seems like the more things change, the more they stay the same. I mean, you could argue, you could go back to the Middle Ages, and you can argue that we're still in the same situation as peasants. Aren't we? I mean, when you really get down to the nuts and bolts of it, right? We're the same serfs that they had back in the day. Back then, it was you work the land or you lose the land. Today, it is you pay taxes, you work and pay taxes, or you lose the land. Back then, when there was a huge war coming, you got conscripted. Guess what's going to happen during World War III? There's going to be conscription. Me personally, This is just my take. This can totally change. And I'm not saying I'm correct on this, but I don't think nukes are going to be used widespread during World War III. I would be more concerned about shortages. I would be more concerned about infrastructure being taken out long term, cyber attacks, these sorts of things, especially here in the United States. I don't look for an invasion here in the United States. And I've said this previously, there's no reason to invade the United States. You don't need to put boots on the ground here because you already have ideologies on the ground. You already have Americans turning against the system, if you will, and they're begging for communism. So, some demented people are, at least, because they don't understand how that works. My question is, as peasants, serfs, whatever you want to call it, right? Why do we continue to allow this century after century after century? You go back to, again, the Middle Ages, or even further back than that. The people, the population could overpower any government. I don't care if it's the ancient Roman government. They had the supreme military at some point, right? They could have been overpowered by the population. But the population just stuck its head in the ground and followed marching. I don't understand why elites get to make decisions for us just because they have money and just because they have some information that we don't have when you get right down to it. Just a couple of days ago, China announced, now you're probably not going to see this on Western media. I check both sides. I'm checking news from India, WEON. I'm checking RT. I'm checking Western media. I'm checking Al Jazeera. I'm checking all over the place because you don't get the full truth from any of them. You kind of got to put it together like a jigsaw puzzle. So just a few days ago, China vowed to support Syria. A few of you have said, hey, World War III actually started with Syria kicking back up. I get it. Y'all left comments. You said, that's actually Al Qaeda, or what's left of Al Qaeda, these rebels in Syria. But they're using American weaponry. They're getting it somewhere. You know what I'm saying? We're supporting, whether directly or otherwise, another proxy war now against Syria, a coalition, Syria, Russia, and now it looks like China. You begin to see the sides kind of form. You know what I mean? You had your First World War, known as the Great War, and Germany made a mistake. All right. They made a huge mistake. We'll get into that in a second, because they made the same mistake twice. They actually made the same mistake during World War II, and the United States is making that mistake now during World War III. So during World War I, Germany said, hey, we're going to fight quickly. We're going to go over here. We're going to knock out France, and we're going to hit Russia. I believe it was. And they're fighting multiple fronts. Unwinnable. When you begin to fight on multiple fronts and you don't have as much manpower and you don't have as many resources, circa the United States, you lose the war. Second World War, same thing. They haven't conquered Britain. They're taking on the West. They decide to go in on Russia as well. War on two fronts now. Unwinnable. And we had talked about earlier this week, look where we're deployed as the United States. Look at all the people that we have or all the countries we've promised to protect with the enlistment shortage that we already have. We can't keep up with the munitions and the missiles and things that are needed for Ukraine. It's not all a funding issue in Ukraine. A lot of it is we can't keep up. We can't produce them fast enough. The UK cannot produce them fast enough. France, they can't produce them fast enough to stay caught up with this. So we begin to see the sides forming for World War III. And I've got China, Russia, Syria, Iran, and North Korea. I don't know what they're going to call themselves. Western media is calling them the axis of power or something like that. They're making reference. That's the thing. The Western media knows this is World War III, but they're not coming out and saying, hey, we're in World War III. But they're making references to the axis of power, which was one of the sides during World War II. They understand that these countries are coming together and forming a coalition to take on the West. They've been doing so for some time now. World War II, General Patton said, "We defeated the wrong enemy." That's a direct quote. We defeated the wrong enemy. And a lot of people take this out of context. A lot of people say that he was being sympathetic toward Germany. I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think General Patton realized we should have been fighting the communists. You know, take a look at the United States in 2024 and tell me I'm wrong, or in his case, that he was wrong. Communism is the threat today. Communism was the threat back then. Again, I'm not giving a free pass to Germany, to Italy, and all this. They did a lot of horrible things, but they were also trying to defeat communism. And I think that's what General Patton meant by that statement. I think he realized we should have maybe teamed up with the other side, gotten rid of the communism, and then sorted things out and held people accountable. Because you take a look at the United States in 2024, communism has infected us. It's infected the West. We were just talking about this, right? You look at our allies, it's infected our allies. We have U.S. citizens who are demanding communism here in the United States. And you can always tell they start off on social media and they're always angling to bash capitalism because they don't understand there are multiple forms of capitalism. I'm not necessarily a fan of the capitalism we're under right now. I think it's called neo-capitalism, right? I want to get back on the gold standard. I want money to actually be worth something, right? I think that capitalism is a great thing because it allows people to work themselves out of poverty, small business and stuff like this. You don't have that with communism. Communism fails time and again, but again, these people are idiots. Why are they graduating colleges and cheerleading for communism? It's because communism has infected the university level. Communism has infected the government. Plenty of people in the government are compromised at this point. Most of our important institutions, CIA, FBI, et cetera, they've been compromised, in my opinion, by communists. And this is, again, why you really don't need to put boots on the ground in the United States. We are imploding as it is economically. And then on top of this, those numbers, the economy crashing, is being blamed on capitalism. And they're saying, hey, I have a solution. It's communism. Communists have played the long game here in the United States. I mean, China actually had a manifesto out explaining how they were going to collapse the United States. I would say right now they are masters of the long game. We have a problem and a tendency here in the United States, our military and our government, to play the short game. We look 6 months ahead, year ahead. This is how we get caught up in 20-year wars. China plays the long game. They knew how to defeat the United States. They knew by making moves over here and causing chaos over here and over here, it was going to force the United States to over-deploy. And so now we're looking a whole lot like Germany during World War I or World War II. Germany during World War II had one of the greatest militaries throughout history. Greatest Air Force. They didn't have such a great naval fleet, but they depended on submarines. But I mean, manpower-wise, technology-wise, they were it. But they were deployed literally all over the place. We're making the same mistakes. China knows it. Here are the numbers to support the fact that we're already in World War III. And you can go back and you can check the other world wars, and you can see that there were millions of people engaged in battles and things like this on the front lines. Currently in Europe, there are 2 million NATO troops. Some of these are in Poland, but a lot of them are one plane flight away from being in Poland on the front lines. Should Russia continue to try and land grab or whatever is going on there? 2 million. I think NATO has roughly 3.5 million grand total. But again, 2 million throughout Europe. Russia has an estimated 3.5 million. That's counting their reserve troops. So we're looking at 5.5 million soldiers within striking distance of one another. We're looking at Western tanks, Western planes, Western missiles, ballistic missiles being used against Russia. We're looking at North Korean troops on the ground now backing Russia. They're using Iranian weapons. They're using arms and things from China and funding from China. It's a world war, folks, is what I'm trying to tell you. This is a world war. And I don't know that our government will ever admit it. But I think one day, assuming the country survives, I don't see it as a winnable world war. I don't know what the United States looks like in the aftermath. We're going to be depopulated, right? A lot of patriots are going to get sent off and drafted and things to go die in the wood chipper just to be replaced by people that aren't supposed to be here. I do see that happening, folks. I just don't think it's a winnable world war. In my personal opinion, I don't think either group of elites are there yet when it comes to nukes. I think they threaten with nukes. That threat is always there, and it can happen at any point in time. But I don't see them doing it. And I've said this before. I'll say it again real quick. You don't win the game of Monopoly by destroying the game board. You understand? You don't win the game of Risk by destroying the game board, because then there's nothing. Then there's nobody gains anything. These people are greedy. Both of them want to be the reserve currency for the next 100 years so they can stay in power. These are the most powerful people in the world, and they're arguing over who's in charge. And that's why I think, war is unavoidable. I think Trump will try and keep us out of a world war. Here's my fear. I think he's going to try and keep us out of a world war, and I think we're going to see a huge false flag. Because right now, the idea of a world war is not popular. We mentioned earlier in the week, it's not popular with liberals or conservatives. Nobody wants their kids getting sent to the wood chipper or the meat grinder, whatever you want to call it. But if you see a huge false flag, like we did with Pearl Harbor, yeah, I think it was a false flag. Or at the very least, I'm not trying to go down that rabbit hole too much, but at the very least, we had advance notice and we sat on it. We suppressed information to turn the attitude here in the United States, because the thought of entering World War II, we were neutral. We wanted no part of it. That was the attitude of the United States until Pearl Harbor happened, and then all of a sudden people are demanding World War II. We've got to go. That's the fear. The fear is Trump is going to do everything he can to keep us out of it. These elites are going to cause some sort of flag, and we're going to be dragged into it anyway. I don't think that our military leadership is capable of winning World War III. I don't think the numbers support us winning World War III. I don't think we have the economy for a World War III. I don't think we have the resources for a World War III, especially on multiple fronts. But that's just my thoughts this morning, folks. Let me know what you think in the comments. Y'all take care and God bless.